Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Whatnot Podcast. I'm MikeZ,
I'm Chris and whatnot.
and today we're going to be talking about, well, scrap wood. Reason being, lumber prices are out of control. It's a
And
high,
everybody's got it.
yeah, not everyone's got it. That's right. So what we
Yeah.
figured we'd talk about is basically, okay, so if you either are already in woodworking or want to get into it, how to maximize your dollar, how to make sure that you're getting correct wood when you want to buy it, and then of course scraps. Most importantly is just scraps. Why throw things away that are perfectly good for other projects?
Yep. Because they're always good for something. Maybe not immediately, but the idea will come to you.
And as soon as you decide that you want to burn them or throw them away is when you'll need them. So hold on to them for a day or two longer.
Yep. Yep. Give it another week and you'll remember what you held on to them for.
That's it. Now, unfortunately, for those who are watching with the video, Chris has given us some great pictures of what he uses for scraps. I unfortunately am a slacker, but I can say that under my chop saw, I have a old college chemical metal stand that my chop saw sits on, and all of my scraps are organized down below that, from smallest at the top to biggest towards the bottom. And that is for, anytime I got to cut off, I just slide it in there so it's somewhat organized. But what I'm looking for is that when you're refinishing furniture, for me, I find that there's these little blocks in the back of drawers. And what they do is they keep the drawer from going past the face frame of the actual dresser or the chest of drawers. So when you have those little blocks, they work out great for being a spacer to make sure the drawer stops properly and no one ever sees it. So it works out really nice.
Yeah. It'd be definitely handy for stuff like that.
Yep. So if you're into refinishing or if you're into just refurbishing furniture, keeping scraps around is a lifesaver. Drawer slides, you name it.
Well, and from a finishing perspective, I've used a lot of scraps just screwed or nailed to the back of a shelf to make the shelf stand upright so I could finish both sides and the front and back. That works really well, for just being supportive for stuff like that while you're trying to spray or finish or dry.
Yep. And so for me, I like to use scraps to cut other scraps with. That way I can make sure it's a nice clean cut. Good evening, John. Thank you for joining us.
What's up?
So, but I want to see some more of your shop. Hold on. All right. So what is this montage?
Well, I've got so much crap that I made an entire shelf system for it. Anything less than 24 inches, that's fairly usable. And you can see there's a variety of hardwoods on there. There's no plywoods on that rack. It's all exotics and different hardwoods and stuff that go there. And, the thought is, being that I do a lot of CNC, there's always something that I can make out of that. Or eventually I'll rip some of that up and make, various cutting boards.
Okay. So if someone needs like a gift in a pinch, you have the species and the variety available.
In some cases, yes. Or if you want to make letters for a sign and whatnot, you could.
What a great idea.
If you have a little scrap, you could make it out of that.
So what are those made out of, by the way, with your new sign that you have created?
They're made out of poplar.
Oh, it's one of my favorite woods to work with.
Yep. I happen to have a scrap piece of poplar that was about 7x7, and I said, well, I can't throw it away. It was kind of green, so it really wasn't. It wasn't it had some weird color in it, so it wasn't anything I was going to actually make, that wasn't painted. So, but I kept it. Originally, I was just going to use MDF because I got a crap ton of that scrap around here, but there's a shelf in one of them pictures somewhere that shows all that. But instead, I used poplar. Yeah, that's the upper side of the other shelf. On the back side, I've got upright storage for thin stock and other things that are a little taller but narrower.
Gotcha. What's a bucket?
That's all plywood stuff, and I use that a lot. I'll go digging through that to find, spacers and levelers and stuff to put under products while I'm putting a finish on. So that's also over by the miter station. That's one that I keep shoved underneath my lumber rack. It's a lot of exotic cutoffs, different thicknesses.
I was going to say, it looks like a lot of exotics.
Yeah, it's all small stuff. So, who knows what I'm going to do with it, but someday.
So from, I'll say this from here on out, because of the years I worked with my dad, he has become known as Bob. It's easier whenever someone knows him just to call him Bob. So it's no disrespect whatsoever to my dad, but he's always referred to as Bob, and it's kind of like an inside family joke at this point. So does Bob ever bring over his exotic cutoffs from all of the amp bases that he makes?
No, he hoards them for himself, I think.
No, actually, I think he hoards them for me because once a year I get this box, and it's so bad to say, but a lot of them turn into stirring sticks, except for Paduke. I've learned that lesson the hard way. But there's a lot of like Peruvian walnut, and they work great because of the cutoffs he's making. They're great for stir sticks.
Ridiculous. Think of all the cutting boards you could have been making.
I know, but they work really good and hold up really well on paint. I keep all the really nice figured ones for other projects. These are like the skinny.
Yeah, my plywood scraps oftentimes will turn into that, but usually I field them for other things.
Yeah, he calls it the kindling box, but unfortunately I use it some for kindling. When it's really thin, you can't really do much with it. But some of the other stuff I'll use for sure. But so the lesson is, so if you're going to use a stir stick of Paduke, don't put it in clear, don't put it in white, because it will turn it orangey pink color in a heartbeat.
Just like it does when you sand it or finish it.
Yep. It bleeds very fast too. You think, I just mix this up real quick, it'll be fine. No, it is not.
Yeah, I made a sign for the extravaganza show a couple years ago, and it was maple with a Paduke inlay, and I made the mistake of sanding the Paduke after I had inlaid it. Yeah, that was
before putting a sealer.
Quite the bleed over into the maple. Thankfully, I was able to get that all cleaned up before it got ruined by someone else. No names will be named here.
Oh, it's all right. He's retired now. It's all good.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. So yeah,
the scrap. Go to finish later.
Yeah, no joke. And runs, and it was a very lovely piece. It's completely coated from the elements from here on out for sure. And that wasn't scrap wood though, was it? That was all thin stock you had to buy. Okay.
Yeah.
But the sign behind you is scrap barnwood. How old is that barnwood?
It's at least 100 years old. The lady I got it from, she couldn't give me a definite date, but she knew it was well over 100. And if you look, I've got a whole rack of it. Matter of fact, that's this whole wall. There's another rack above it that you can't see that's also full. So it's got a lot of barnwood.
And roughly, you don't have to give the exact amount, but roughly, what did you pay for that? Zero.
Well, let me rephrase. I paid zero money, but I had made these little candle base things for my daughter's wedding, and the lady that had the wood was our caterer, and she just loved them. And since she was a caterer and also did other things for weddings, she was asking how much. And well, it just, after we talked a little bit, found out she had some barnwood, so the cost of that went way down. So we just traded even she got 6 or 8 of those candle pieces. I think I made 13 total.
Oh,
she
cool.
got 6 or 8 of them, and I got a huge trailer and a truckload of barnwood. Seems
that'll work out. Oh yeah. Good evening, Kyle. How you doing today, sir? The whatnot
Mr. Vectric himself.
It is.
A quick shout out to Kyle, man. Made the top 10 list for Vectric instructors. Dude, guy's awesome.
That's a big deal, man. Congratulations.
We'll give you a shout out and whatnot.
And then John's going to be asking, how did you clean it up? And I'm guessing that's the Paduke and the maple.
I'm assuming that's the case. I did a lot of hand sanding on the maple to get that off, and I did use some acetone on the maple to try to help clean some of that, and that seemed to work. No, acetone or alcohol. I can't remember what I used. I think I drank the alcohol and used the acetone. That's what it was.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I hope it wasn't the other way around, but would explain a lot. But that's typically how I got that away, and did a lot of real tedious hand sanding around there to get rid of some of the pinkish bleed off from the dust. Thankfully, I didn't wipe it. I saw what was happening, so I got a little more cautious around that area. So wasn't too bad.
So back on the subject of prices of wood going up, when you had the opportunity to get this barn wood, it was mostly labor is what it took, hauling it, unloading it, loading it, I guess, first, then hauling it, then unloading it. But really, for the most part, I know right here in North Carolina, there is a lot of old barns, and people, don't want to take the time. They try to sell them, but a lot of times it's easier to say, hey, if you want it, come and get it. You take it down, you mess with it, it's yours.
Yeah,
So
thankfully, they had already torn the barn down, and it was under a shed, an outdoor shed, in the dry, and it had been there for, I don't know, probably a year or so. And the guy that had it, she had taken it all to his place because he made her a couple of pieces of furniture, and he was retiring and selling his building, and whatever didn't get taken just got tossed.
oh, that's
So,
cool.
I got all I could, and I ended up having to build this 2x4 rack here and the 2x4 rack over there that you can't see. I built both of those. Thankfully, at that time I had already invested in some 2x4s. This is before they went up 272%.
So it cost you $10.
Yeah, so that was back when they were $2 a piece, and a sheet of AC plywood was about 40. But I built that rack, and that worked out pretty well to be able to store it. It wasn't ideal because it's certainly not on the side of the shop that I wanted, and I had other plans for this wall, which clearly got killed by the lumber storage. But
So, and a lot of times, I think that a lot of people, whether they watch this later, listening to it now, what you're going to find is that the more retail you go, the higher the prices are going to go. Because I'm seeing on Facebook, everyone's posting the big box stores prices. And yeah, they're going to be higher. Contractors aren't necessarily paying that much. They're probably, they're still paying 2 to 3 times more than they were, but they're not paying as much as the average person that walks in the door. They get a pro contract amount, or they get a bundled amount of so many sticks. So, a lot of people aren't complaining about it because, they do know that there's ways around that. But at the same time, finding barnwood's a good deal if you can do it. My personal favorite, if you're going to be getting into woodworking, is poplar. Chris does not agree. We've had this conversation off campus a couple of times. But for me, it's one of those where it's very forgiving. It's soft, but it's a hardwood, so it doesn't load up your abrasives as fast as, say, pine. It does stain easier than pine and maple, but it does have a green hue to it. And there's even some purple poplar out there. They call it rainbow poplar. But structurally speaking, especially doing all the furniture that we've done, refinishing and stuff like that, a lot of the interiors of these dressers, I'd say the 30s through the 50s, 60s, they were all poplar. It was a great building material. It takes 30 years to grow the tree to mature growth. So therefore, it's a generational tree is what they call it. You can get wood pretty good with that, and it's reasonably priced because it's not going to be full of knots. The downside that people don't like is just that it's green. What are your thoughts on poplar?
I mean, I love it if I'm painting, but certain projects yield for a certain look, whether that be the nice grain of an oak, or the deep red of a cherry, or the clearness of a good maple, or a nice brownish grain like a mahogany, a sapelli, or even a walnut. So it has its place, but just like roundover versus chamfer, everybody has an opinion, but occasionally I'll use both.
That's a nice segue right there. So yeah, there's other woods out there to look at. You don't necessarily always have to use 2x4s, 1x4s, 1x6s, things along those lines. If you can find a lumber yard that's in your area, typically, if you're just starting out, there are going to be what they call scraps or off pieces that just are, twisted, warped, cupped, bent, something that's not perfectly straight. Something happened with it, has a lot of knots, whatever the case may be, that's a defect that they just don't feel sells the premium price, then they're going to put it off to the side. And if so, try to get those because they're going to be less expensive. If you're doing smaller projects, they're great because you can cut a lot of that twist and cupping out of it. you don't have to buy what's sitting there in front of you at the box store. Basically, there's definitely places that you can go. You can look up smaller mom and pop type shops. I know the one that we have right there by our work is great. I've learned a few ins and outs with them. One of the things that I learned very quickly when going there is that if you don't pick through the wood, you pretty much take what's on the stack off, your price is going to be cheaper. The more time you take to pull and dig through that stack, your price is going to go up.
Yeah, he's pretty particular about how things gets restacked. So,
and they have to be restacked by him. There's no one else going to be restacking that. Yeah. I've tried that before and learned my lesson very quickly that no, he'll take care of it.
Well, as a matter of fact, I went today to pick up some plywood because he had some 3/4 Vietnamese birch, very clean. It actually had fir core, which is pretty nice. And he had some 5x5 1/2-inch Baltic. Well, I really didn't need much, but he did inform me that next week it's going up about $9. So I went ahead and bought 2 sheets of each. The 1/2-inch is 5x5, and then the 3/4 for 4x8. So stocked up even though I didn't need it. And the cool thing is the Vietnamese plywood is actually pre-finished on both sides. So
it's even better.
Yeah, that's going to wind up being shop furniture. So
cool. Well, no. So establishing that relationship with someone who's in the yard all the time is great because you now have that opportunity to find out, hey, why don't you go ahead and grab it now? Next week's going to go up.
And he's even at a point where he's not really dealing much with the general public. He's sticking to mostly contractors and cabinet shops because his supply is so limited. And, talking about the lumber shortage and price hikes, he deals a lot with the Russian birch. And it's going to be 10 weeks before he gets any more.
Wow.
So, and that's if he can get any more. So, with lumber getting scarce, us as woodworkers, we've got to start getting creative with our scraps. And thankfully, I'm a pretty good hoarder of a lot of those things. And, I'll start getting creative, trying to find things that I can make that, people might be interested in, or I'll be less likely to make prototypes. It's kind of odd since I just finished a prototype tonight, but anyway, but like with that barnwood, it's so wormy and it's got a lot of voids in it from those worms that, it doesn't really make a nice finished piece. But if you're looking for something rustic like that, it's perfect. Yeah. And I use a sanding mop to clean all the garb off the front to leave that sort of rustic, rough look, and slap some shellac on it, and it turns out fantastic. So
it's done. Shellac's a great product for display pieces, something that you're not going to be handling a lot of. So it looks good. And the nice part is when you have rough wood like that and you put a shiny type of finish on it, it soaks in so deep that you actually get more of a dull.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Poplar's fantastic. I'm sorry. It's one of my favorites to work with when you want to keep the cost low. Because remember, what was it, about 10 years ago, Ambrosia Maple, they were basically giving it away. Like it was $1 a board foot.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like $8 a board foot for the exact same thing.
Everything's a premium. I mean, you can't even hardly get free pallets anymore. So
no, yeah, we were talking about that because I saw a place right by work that actually has a fence around their pallets now. It used to be before there'd be guys coming and they just load up the truck and drive off and no one said anything. It wasn't a big deal. Like, yeah, get them out of here. Now they're like protected gold.
Yeah.
Soon they'll have security guards.
Oh yeah. Now, unless you do a lot of epoxy resin stuff, then you're pretty much limitless with what you can do because you can make something out of sawdust and saw chips and epoxy resin. But even that, my understanding is some of the resins are becoming scarce to get. So that may start translating into stuff like PVC, other plastics, pool liners, stuff like that. Gonna
be harder.
Start getting, but even buckets, it's insane. I mean, buckets are going to be a premium. So,
well, I heard from another part of our industry, but on another sector of it, that the certain resins that they needed to make a finishing product came out of Houston. And with the cold snap and everything that happened there with the power grid, it actually made a huge impact on production of this particular resin. So in just, it was a funny conversation to me because it was so short. I don't know why they told me this. It was kind of one of those random things, you just, when you're on the phone with a vendor, you talking. So I said, hey, there's this place called Eastman Chemical out of Klingsport, Tennessee. And I said, just check with them, just find out. Cause I know that there's a lot of places around here that got finishing products, the raw materials by train. I said that it came from there. So it turns out they actually had the resin there, which is great because now that particular product that they're making can now get back underway. Before they were like, man, we don't know what we're going to do because we just can't get this particular raw material. So just knowing simple things like that, sometimes in just having that conversation with somebody can kind of change the course of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's just getting to the point where you just gotta, between lockdowns and other things of those nature, you got to get creative. And I'm having fun out here in the shop trying to tidy up and clean up and find storage. And the more I find, I throw it in the garbage, and then I'm like, no, I'll just throw that in the burn pile, and then I'll go find myself later digging it out of the burn pile and putting it in the I might use this later pile. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, we made some ladder racks my wife saw on Pinterest one time, and they were 2x2x8s. And I had made, I don't know, probably like 12 parts. So whenever someone ordered it, I would quickly assemble it, go out the door, but I pre-stained it, cut them, did everything to size. And of course now they're being used as, scrap, because I had like maybe, I don't know, 1.5 left or something. There was one that eventually broke. So therefore I've got all these sticks now pre-stained. So now they're going, like, just recently I had an old cabinet and that's what I did. The drawer was going all the way in. So I was like, wait a minute, this is a perfect block for that. Cut it up, stuck it in there. So scraps for the win.
I know I wanted to see just how small of detail that I could make on the CNC. I took a block that was 2x2, it was a piece of sapelli, I believe, 2x2x3/4. And I carved a 1.5 inch tall eagle in a little dished out area. And I used a 1/16 ball nose. And man, it turned out fantastic. The detail was great. So that kind of got me to thinking, man, if I could do that with a piece of scrap that's no bigger than 2x2, there's a lot of other things that I could do with scrap that would be just as cool, because people would like all sorts of things.
Absolutely. So I mean, everything from being a functional part of a piece of furniture down to actual being able to carve it and sell it with CNC.
Yeah.
Scraps are where it's at. Now, when does it become too small for you to use as a scrap?
Well, is there ever a threshold? Usually I base that on how much space I have, or
Gotcha.
if I can figure out how to put another box or another, because I found a cardboard box that was about that tall and it fits perfectly underneath my plywood rack. So I was like,
Small pieces.
I started putting little small pieces. Matter of fact, that was one of the images you showed, that you could tell it was kind of underneath. There was another little rack above it. That was my little small. Actually I use that for a lot. The one you're showing there, I use that a lot for CNC staging. So if I've got, and as you can see, there's 4 boards there, right, stacked on top of each other in the middle on that top shelf. Those are CNC projects that are already glued up, dimensioned, and ready to be carved out.
Cool. I see some poplar.
Yep.
Where's this little box? See, now I got is
right there.
That box? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when I'm done sorting through it, I kind of shove it back underneath that plywood bin. It's just to the top of the picture.
Now I get it.
Perfectly concealed. Who cares if it gets dust on it? Bugs, spiders, it doesn't matter. It's all scrap.
Yeah. So I mean, really, it's more of a factor for me of how thin it goes. Like if it's less than 1/8, to where it's, if you pick it up and it starts bending, yeah, it can go in the burn pile.
Well, see, those are the ones that I'm actually saving those in a different location, because as long as they're a certain width. Now, if it's 1/8 by 8, whatever. But if it's a certain width, if I do a curved part of a cutting board, they're already cut thin so I can actually make that bend to follow that curve.
Well, that's a great idea.
And so it's like almost like an inlay in a cutting board. So I already have plans for even thin cutoff strips for stuff like that.
See, I don't do that, so I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a great idea.
Well, I haven't done any either, but I had the thought about it, and just, you know,
Nice
when I
on the
have
fly.
time, future project.
Boy, I tell you what. Well, it's all about. There was that one customer we had. They're making cabinet doors. This was at our work, and so in the store, he's making cabinet doors. He's got like truckloads of these long strips of, you know, they're 3/4 of an inch tall. I mean, it's regular 13/16 dimensional, and they're cutting all of the end scraps off. So what we did at the store, like, I don't, for whatever reason, we got a hold of them. Like, hey, you know, we'll buy them or whatever. And so I started making these little like cutting board kits, because they're already straight line ripped. They're hardwoods of maples and cherries and walnuts. And I would take shrink wrap and put them around, and I think it sold them for like $5. So someone who may not have a table saw could utilize this scrap.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the customer comes in, he's like, "What is, you know, is that the wood I gave you guys, or soldier, or whatever?" I don't remember how it went. And he's like, "Yeah, just, you know, cut them down to a length. I don't remember what it was, maybe 18 inches." I said, "Just shrink wrap them up, and $5." Then all of a sudden, I noticed that the truck stopped coming. They weren't showing up anymore. Then I noticed he had an Etsy store and an Amazon store selling cutting boards. He was gluing them up at his work. I was like, But at the same time, he didn't think of the scrap thing. So kind of like when you put that thin strip in there as an inlay, it's a great idea.
Well, and I think there's one of the photos I sent was a 55-gallon drum, and I don't know, I've had that since 2008 or 9, and it's just full of like cut off parts from furniture, legs from chairs and arms from chairs and stuff that I've just had it, and I just keep it in that 55-gallon drum outside. It works.
There it is. I don't know why I didn't have it from before, but I'll throw it in there real quick.
But, you know, so I've used a few pieces out of there because it's you know, some of it's 2-inch thick, so it kind of just works out well, you know, to have some, and it's all maple. So, you know, I've used a piece or two here or there over the years.
And does the rust have any effect at all on the maple when you're trying to do finishing or anything?
It adds texture. That's my MDF Cut Off Shelf.
And is that the cutoff parts from CNC projects?
Yeah, I do a lot of speaker parts, and so when I have the cutoffs, instead of throwing them away, I stack them up. It doesn't look like there's that many, but I assure you, if I started taking them down, you'd be amazed at just how much is up there. And I don't know what I'm going to do with them. And it's MDF, so it's not like I'm going to make, you know, some exotic piece of furniture out of it.
But so at the same time, these would be great relief carvings on the CNC.
Mm-hmm. You could do a lot of painting projects.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had planned on utilizing them for, was stuff where I'm going to be doing some painting or, you know, making different pieces for customers. Actually, I can show you something. I'll be right back.
Let's take a look at that again. Just trying to figure out how his garage door opens with those cleats so close to the top. So this is truly rustic maple. There you go. I have my first dad joke of the night right there. This is rustic maple.
I like it.
It's not Chris level stuff, I know.
So, you know, you can do simple stuff like this with scrap. And as you can see, that's, you know, roughly about, I don't know, 3 inches. But that's nothing more than a little Christmas type ornament with some, you know, text and then a nice little monogram looking piece to it. This was made out of a piece of scrap. The back had a chunk out of it.
That's just for aerodynamics.
So I used this as a front, and nobody was ever the wiser. And my wife liked it, but somehow or another, I kept it out in the shop as a template. You know, if you've got little pieces, this is 4x4, and this is a coaster. Oops, coaster, kind of the same design, just a little larger. And so that was my design process with this, was to take the same design, scale it up or down based on what I need. And I've got another piece out of something 18 by 18, I think. But this is all scrap right here, and this is scrap. So utilize the scrap for unique things that you can make, and that happens to be 1/4 inch. But my game plan with that MDF is to do something similar to that. Not a coaster, of course, but something along those lines. That's simple, small. You can make custom little discs and rings for people.
Now, if you don't know what MDF is, it's basically sawdust that's been glued and pressed together. But on the surfaces, it has a really nice film layer from the press and the gluing and the heating process. So finish takes really nicely to that area. But if you ever expose it to water, it starts to swell and get all kinds of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm thinking, as you're talking about doing an MDF kind of, relief carving, would that be a time where you would bring in the aura mask? So like you'd paint it all one color, like maybe,
Yep.
white, black. Then you'd carve everything out and then you peel the aura mask off so it was nice and clean.
Yep. I do that quite a bit with other projects. And so, my thought was, even if it's just a little change bowl, if I've got a ring from a speaker cutout that's 8 inches, that would make a great 7-inch bowl. Just a little dish to throw your change in. You can do anything with your scrap. And it's not a matter of what can you do. There's really no limit to what you can do. If you've got, enough scrap, you can kind of do some unique things. Can you even cut it into 2x2s and make custom checkers? Yeah. Nice.
There you go. Well, the nice part about scrap is that if you have a project coming along that you're going to be using or creating a lot of this scrap, then, you can start looking at it as in like, well, these are going to start building up, and you start figuring out something to do with it. And if you do a project that gives you 5, well, then now you have a limited edition coaster. There's only 5.
Matter of fact, I did some work for your dad, and he noticed my MDF storage. And he goes, "What you doing with all those MDFs? You can't make anything out of that." I said, "Well, I'm keeping them for something." I said, "Oh, I've got some ideas," and I rambled off a few. And he went, "Huh? Maybe I'll just start taking my scrap back."
I swear. Only Bob.
That's okay. I shut him down. I said, "Well, you'd have to have a CNC for that." He went, "Well, you just keep them and I'll just place my order."
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Bad. Clever. So he made 9 charcuterie boards out of 3-inch and 1/8-inch wide scraps. There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So it's your only limit is your imagination, and charcuterie boards are handy right now. Everybody wants them.
She do. We just enjoyed just having fun with that word. So Kyle says that he gets a ton of scrap from my work. They throw out full sheets of plywood and veneered MDF sometimes. I also get quarry and solid surface scraps. I have stored it all over. Yeah, I know that. My tip, always check with your local cabinet shops. They may throw out a lot of good scraps. That's a good tip.
Yep. And when I first got started into woodworking on my own, I was actually buying my plywood from a local cabinet shop because they buy it in bulk. If I wanted 1 sheet of cherry plywood, typically they had an abundance of that, and they would sell it to me at their cost plus a little more. And it was 10 times cheaper than going into the big box and buying the cheap stuff that they got on the shelf. So,
yeah,
so not nearly as good a deal as what Kyle's getting.
No, not at all. But at the same time, I know here in Hudson, there was a place that had nothing but the 1/8-inch hardboard, but it was MDF, but it was like hardboard. And so whenever my dad and I needed that for a particular item that we were making, we just went and bought it there because it's $5 a sheet, because they had it in like train loads, and they had CNCs running, just cutting out these parts that are 1/8 of an inch, and then we'd stack them and make other things out of them. So for us to get 5 sheets, they were like, "Yeah, sure, here, $25, it's yours." So yeah, a lot of those factories or any kind of woodworking local cabinet shops, Any place where you see a dumpster or a very large dust collection cyclonic container, that might be a good place to check for scraps. Speaking of cyclonic dust collections, how's your Rikon doing?
Oh man, it sucks. Yeah. Yeah. I'm amazed at the improvement that I got from using that. Every station I got it sort of temporarily moved to the old location and got all the dust pipe all reformed and reran, and it works fantastic. You know,
Awesome.
yeah, especially the CNC, because I was able to get that off the floor and just temporarily run it across the ceiling and drop it straight down. And I think I went from like 590 CFM to like 1060 or something.
Yeah, because you had it without the booster, with the booster, and then with the new cyclonic, and the cyclonic outdid both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At every station, I'm in. Matter of fact, it's so much better. I can have two 4-inch lines open at the same time and still get better performance at any of those machines. So
There you go.
anyway, it's been a good week. I got all that done Saturday, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes
I don't know if
lonely,
MDF is the devil. It's got a love-hate relationship with a lot of people. But hey, you know what? It used to be inexpensive. It used to be like $35 a sheet compared to plywood. Stayed relatively straight, unless you put it up against the wall for a while in a smaller strip. But downside is it is 90 pounds a sheet.
Yeah.
That's a
I
little
have
heavy.
I have a Bora panel carrier when I'm having to cut full sheets. Man, what a lifesaver that thing is. Roll it
I'm
right over
sure
the
it is.
saw, tilt it back, push it on like nobody's business. So
Did you do a video on that?
yeah, I think I did a video whenever I first got the Bora panel carrier.
System?
Yeah. But
Yeah, I just have
love
the
it.
old Stanley yellow panel carrier, old clunky thing.
I have one of those too.
It's helpful, but it's no, panel assist. Yours is kind of flips it up on the table for you. Helps load it.
You can feed it right off my plywood cart, roll it right over to the table saw, tip it back, and I've got it set at just the right height. So when I tip it back, it actually sort of acts like an infeed table / support for the outside. So
Oh, there
works
you
out
go.
pretty good.
The Hudson Dragway. So, I mean, really, it comes down to, do you let the lumber prices get to you right now? Do you let them because economics is all about supply and demand. If you make your supply low and the price goes up, then the demand starts to drop. When the demand starts to drop, they have no choice but to start coming back down with the price because their supply is going to start growing. So it's a balancing game. And when it's a balancing game, this is where, for woodworkers, we really need to be creative with our scraps, creative with what we have laying around that's been sitting there collecting dust probably for a year, 2, 3, a decade. We all have those different levels of wood that's been sitting there. We got something for it. We got something for it. Now's a good time to have that something for it, and not have to pay these higher prices that are currently affecting everybody who wants to get into wood or is in wood.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
a good
it
point,
is
Kyle.
dead flat. Yep.
Very
So
good.
Kyle loves working with veneered MDF on the CNC for signs. It lasers good too and is dead flat, and that is absolutely spot on. There's a lot of furniture factories around here that use veneered MDF instead of veneered particle board because of that true flatness. So they're making desks, conference tables, you name it. They're cranking out some very large pieces, but they'll remain flat.
And there's a lot of cabinet shops that to this day, if they're making a painted door instead of making a 5-piece, which is your 2 rails and 2 stiles and a center panel, instead of making that out of a 5-piece set, they're making the whole thing out of an MDF, and they're milling it all out of one solid chunk.
There you go.
And then paint it up. You never know the difference, and you don't have the issue of swelling joints like you do with traditional wood. As long as you use a good quality primer and top coat, you won't have any issues with moisture or water.
Nope. Nope. And let's say if you're unsure if you have MDF in your home, you go into your kitchen and your kitchen cabinets are painted white with a detail that it looks like has been carved into the front of it. More than likely that's MDF.
Yeah.
So if you're unsure, if you have a piece of furniture that you purchased, and this is the biggest crime, I think, in current furniture purchasing, they tell you that it's heavy and it's real wood. Unless it's oak, it's not real wood. Real wood furniture does not weigh a ton. You shouldn't have 4 or 5 people trying to pick up a dresser. That's usually a sign of man-made products like MDF and particle board.
Yeah, MDF is like the gremlin, man. You pour water on it and it doubles in size. It multiplies.
If you have a scrap piece of MDF and you want to play with that, that is a good time-lapse video. I will say that.
I worked for a cabinet shop years ago, probably early 90s, mid 90s. And they had some highfalutin finish that they guaranteed wouldn't swell. And they proved it by doing a test. They did the full paint of the piece and stuck it in a 5-gallon bucket of water for a week.
Whoa.
Pulled it out, and it never changed size.
Yeah, that's impressive.
What kind of finish? That was back when they didn't care what you made finishes out of. Before everything must be water based.
Yeah, before the VOC regulations started kicking in.
Yeah. So I'm sure it was like full of something that wasn't good for you. But
at the same time, it made impervious to water. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get into that one day, because I know for sure the VOC thing is right now, I think, is just the biggest crime against finishing and finishers, is to try to sell you something that's low VOC. I don't buy it. It's not a fan. But it saves the environment. Anyways. That's right. So, as far as scraps go, that's really all I can think of for tonight. Do you have anything else you'd like to have for closing remarks tonight, Chris?
No, I mean, most people may try to tell you, there's not a 1 in a million chance you'll ever use that scrap again. But if there's only 1 in a million, that means there's always a chance.
That's right. And also, if you throw it out, that chance will come as soon as you throw it out. We talked about this earlier. It goes without saying.
Yeah. I did a CNC project late last fall, I guess, and ended up, the slab started out as like 3.5 inches or something crazy. And by the time I fixed all of the mess ups from bits slipping and stuff like that, I wound up with literally a huge 40-something gallon garbage bag full of nothing but the chips. And I know it was from that project because I emptied my barrel before I started that project and then emptied everything that was in that barrel after that project, because I was so concerned that I had screwed up this guy's project that I was going to have to find a way to salvage it. So my original plan was to get with someone who did a lot of epoxy pours, and have him, he's got a pressure pot, and have him actually turn a bowl out of the scrap. Thankfully, the customer ended up loving the final product. And I just said, well, I might use that for that theme one day. Never did. And then I finally burned them the other day. So
actually, I have a picture of that, because it was a cool project. That was probably, I've seen you struggle very little. And that one in particular was a constant battle.
Yeah. Had 2 slipped bits, a broken bit, and a damaged collet. And every time each of those happened, it was right in a very specific area that it was really tough to salvage from. But the final piece,
the texture, I love the texture on that.
Thanks, Patrick.
That's right.
But
pre-Kyle, post-Kyle, he would have gotten it right the first time.
Yeah. But I use a lot of scraps. I mean, I find myself constantly digging through the scrap bin before I cut up, other things, just because I know I've got enough of it laying around. So, you know, I find myself constantly going for that.
Absolutely. Now, and if you want to have like a makeshift workbench, a makeshift cutting surface, you'll find a lot of times that there's tables. If the table has a leaf and someone's throwing it out and the table looks like it's not worth anything, grab that leaf, because that leaf is a great substrate to put things on to finish, spray on, cut on, you name it. That leaf is an absolute lifesaver. I think I got about 5 of them that I use. And so if I need to cut something or whatever, I just cut on that, because inside of it's usually going to be either hardwood or it's just going to be particle board.
Yeah.
When you have time, look at late 80s Henderdon polyester furniture, end panels, tops, front rails were MDF covered with a black polyester finish. That sounds like pre-2K days.
Yeah.
But Henderdon, and my favorite's always been Century. Century furniture had the wildest finishes I ever came across. But I will. Thank you, John. Good times.
Yeah, good comments tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. I want to say thank you for spending your evening with us.
And whatnot.
Talking about scraps.
Yeah, most of the time scraps isn't a very entertaining topic, and tonight it may not have been for anyone who might be watching it. But, it's an important topic. So, leave us comments below and let us know, your thoughts on how to use scrap. Maybe figure out a way to get us pictures of your things you've used scrap for. We'd love to incorporate that into future episodes. We want to see the stuff you guys have done, and especially if it's related to our topic. Give us some feedback, because we love to share for Woodworker. This is all about the community. We're certainly not here for ourselves. We can hear ourselves talk enough. So
yeah, we talk and do this all the time anyway. So for us, we just wanted to give it back. Yeah. On Facebook, it is Whatnot Podcast. YouTube, Whatnot Podcast. Just search for it. It'll come up after you get past the crocheting videos. That's how it is right now. It'll eventually, hopefully, go away, because those are old videos. But that wonderful woman who did live streams of her crocheting and whatnot, good times.
Yeah.
But Chris is located on Instagram at Crisscross Crafts. I am at DuffStyle1. You can also find the podcast audio version only at the Whatnot Podcast. Buzzsprout. Don't listen to what I say. Just
easy
type
for
it
you
in.
to say.
That's right. And tonight, Chris's Cheerwine was not sponsored. Cheerwine, come on.
If they decided to sponsor us, because clearly my shop has a lot of Cheerwine.
Clearly you have earned the Cheerwine sponsorship with the amount of money you've spent over the years. Yes,
we are here to help support a local, amazing soft drink in Cheerwine. I should ship some up to Kyle one day.
Oh, now where is Kyle again?
Pennsylvania, I believe.
So that means you need some Duke's mayonnaise to go along with that. You can't send out North Carolina Cheerwine without sending out some Duke's.
At least he's up there probably using Heinz ketchup. So I'm, feel confident in that.
That's fine too.
Yeah.
But there's a North Carolina ketchup now I think about it.
Anyway.
John likes to let us know that he is old. I don't think that'd be old, John. Experienced. You know things. Stories. Wise. I was watching a YouTube today. Rick Beato is a record producer. He does a lot of everything from pop to metal to jazz, you name it. And his video was, am I still going to be listening to Tool and Meshuggah at 80 years old? And I'm thinking, that's a great question, because he turns 60 next year. And he's like, am I still going to be wanting to jam with these on the guitar and everything else? So old, it's just a reference.
Yep. But, well, good topic on scrap, and I look forward to the feedback and the other comments that'll come.
And you know what? Definitely send us a picture. Let us know what you use with your scrap. How are you transitioning with the whole lumber price thing, and are you using your scraps more often, and what projects are you coming out with them? Yeah.
Oh yeah, Heinz ketchup. Yeah. Funny story. I used to travel, and the sales rep that I was traveling with, we were in Pennsylvania, and we went into the Pamanti Brothers, which is a well-known place up there. And the waitress brought out the food and the ketchup, and he goes, "Excuse me, I can't eat this." And he was pointing to the Heinz ketchup. He said, "Do you have any Hunts?" And the lady, I'm glad he said that after she dropped our food, because I swear if he would have said that before, she would have spit in it. Yeah. So, like, dude, you just don't do that with me. I mean, when it comes to my food, don't tempt it. Don't risk it.
Just don't use ketchup at that point. If you're not happy with it, just don't use it. Get some mustard.
So, funny travel story. So.
Now, John's got a point, though. Until North Carolina and until I met my wife, I had no idea what a Mater sandwich was. And now I look forward to summers. Like, I'm ready.
And to take it a step further, if you've never had a fried green tomato sandwich,
oh, yeah,
you're missing out, especially with my everything sauce.
You're going to have to share that one time. I don't mean the recipe. I mean, you need to, like, send me some so you share it. Yeah.
That remoulade sauce is banging.
Good times. You should do that. You should do a Chris's recipes, because you've gotten way more into cooking now with testing things like that. So why not?
I mostly use scrap.
Oh, your poor wife.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. But I say she's rich because she's got me rich in love.
And does she roll her eyes and walk away as soon as you say that?
It's exactly what everybody else does. Especially when I try to post marriage tips advice on my social channels.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the marriage advice, quality entertainment, the road trip was really good.
Yeah.
All of them had a good play. I like putting up the dishes. If you haven't seen these, now these aren't on Crisscross Crafts, so these are on your personal.
Yeah. Yeah. And on my TikTok, which is again not Crisscross Crafts. So I have to have a way of doing my fun stuff. So I typically do that on my personal page and and I leave the Crisscross Crafts for the more occasional fun. I still throw the puns in there, but
yeah. And you've got very, very many sides.
But have a lot of fun doing woodworking, and I'm excited now. I'm going to start thinking of some ways to utilize some of the scrap, and maybe in future episodes we'll go, "Hey, look what I made today out of scrap."
Hey, we'll post it. You post it up on the Facebook page. Let's see what we get.
I'm gonna get a 1/32 ball nose, and I'm gonna try to make the smallest something that I can.
The smallest something.
Yeah, I don't know what that something will be. I made the 1.5-inch eagle. Maybe I'll make a 1-inch eagle.
For the Learn Your CNC forum, the Facebook group, would that not be a fun challenge? Is, take a 30-second ball nose and just, like a chess piece, what I'd really like? I would like, and this is old school from when I was a kid, I would like the DeLorean micro machine. That was my favorite micro machine out of all of them, was the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Oh yeah. Now, if you could figure out a way to Vectric, just the top, just give me the profile with the fins out the back. That would be awesome.
Out of scrap.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'll give it to you and then you paint it.
Oh, of course. I can do that for you. It does sound like fun, though, doesn't it? I mean, in a time where things are a little crazy, hey, how are you going to glue it down? How are you going to cut it? What are you going to cut? Chess pieces is the first thing that comes to mind. I don't know why.
Yeah. But find a way to use some scrap and have some fun with it.
Absolutely.
So, look forward to hearing from everybody and, seeing what you make.
Let's do it. All right. So I'm MikeZ.
I'm still Chris. Last I checked.
I'm glad you checked.
Yeah.
This is the Whatnot Podcast, episode 3, Scraps and Whatnot.
I guess that's a wrap.
That's it. We're out of here. You're not going to dance us out?
No, that's only when I'm brushing on shellac.
Gotcha. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a good night.
See you next time.